All right, we're going to call the Finance Committee meeting to order. Present are council members Floyd, Frazier, Cost, Bub, and Marmee. First item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $25,000.
Good evening.
Evening.
This is our probation improvement and incentive grant. We performed well in fiscal year 16 and 17, so we received a reward for that. So the total was $136,951. So we would like to appropriate just $25,000 of that now, and we would like to start making some purchases.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion by Bub, second by Floyd. Any questions or discussion?
I have one. What do you typically purchase with this, for instance?
We've received about $89,000 the previous grant cycle, so equipment, training,
Whatever's needed.
Whatever's needed, yeah.
The replacement items.
Yeah, I mean, we had some office furniture that was already replaced. We were able to purchase some firearms. Just a ton. We had probably a 6-page itemized list we have to send to the state. I can make that available to you if you'd like, but I mean, a lot of stuff. Yeah.
And that itemized list, is that from the previous one? And then
yes, we haven't purchased anything from this one yet. That's why we're here today.
Awesome.
So, yep.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $625.
This request pertains to the fire department's EMS grant. It came in at a little bit higher level than it did in 2016, so this $625 is the extra amount we received.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion by Bob, second by Floyd. Any questions or discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
And with that, this meeting stands adjourned. Next up is personnel.
Okay, it is 5:31. We'll call this Personnel Committee meeting to order. Those present are myself, Ryan Bubb, Doug Marmee, Jonathan Lang. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Mike Mangus, D. Hall. Tonight's agenda, first item on the agenda, is consider Ordinance 17-30, amending the position, classification, pay range, and department authorization tables of the Department of Adult Probation by creating the classification of Probation Officer Specialist and Probation Officer of Adult Probation, and setting the compensation therefore, and abolishing 3 Probation Officer 2 positions and 7 Officer 1 positions. With that, Director Sad is at the podium. The floor is yours, sir.
All right, thank you. We're trying to accomplish a few things with this tonight. We've had a process in place for several years. It was a Probation Officer 1, 2, and 3 process. That really never took off. Scott Fulton had developed that. We had some 1s, we had some regular probation officers, we had a couple of probation officer 2s, we had a 3 at one time, but that was abolished. So we're trying to clean stuff up. So we would like to make all the line officers probation officers. We have 1 director, which is myself. We have a senior probation officer that's already a part of the staff, and then we would like to create the probation officer specialist position. We're being asked to do more with less. Last year, I have some stats for you. In 2016, we did 962 intakes on new probationers. In 2015, we did 901, so we've increased that. We're not asking today to hire anybody else. We're not even asking for more money. There's an account that we have currently called Professional Services. Within that account, we would pay our community service coordinator. He passed away about a month ago, and we're not going to replace that position. So there is money in that account that we would simply just move over to salary and fringe benefits to cover the difference. From my understanding, according to the auditor's office, we're talking about a $3,400 difference approximately for the increase from probation officer 2 to the probation officer specialist position. The lady that's already in the probation officer 2 position would be the lady that would do the probation officer specialist position if approved. She's already doing more duties than the other regular probation officers, but we're looking to give her even more responsibilities than that. So that's why we feel that a pay range 40 for her would be appropriate. Right now she's at a 36. The probation officers would be set at 34s across the board. So there's a lot of attachments and things. I'm happy to answer questions. It'll show in the attachments the differences between the probation officer specialist and the probation officer. If you want me to tell you exactly the differences, I can. I have it separated out here. But if you'd like to ask me questions, please feel free to do so.
Is there any questions or comments from anyone on this panel?
Make a motion.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion on the floor by Marmee, a second by Lang. Is there any questions or comments from anyone in the audience? Seeing none, I have a motion on the floor by Marmee, a second by Lang. All those in favor of moving this on to full council can signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. With that, we will stand adjourned.
All right, we'll call this public safety meeting to order. Those present are Blake, Rath, Lang, Floyd, and Frazier. On the agenda tonight is Ordinance 1729, an ordinance amending Chapter 812 of the Codified Ordinance of the City of Newark, Ohio, to prohibit the use of any wild or exotic animal for purposes of amusement or entertainment in or at certain functions. To begin, I want to read through the initial part, make sure on the record we have a clear understanding of the legislation. Whereas on various occasions the City of Newark has played host to certain events or shows, such as traveling circus, wherein wild or exotic animals are used for the amusement and entertainment of the guests in attendance. And whereas the presence and potential mistreatment of such wild and exotic animals at these traveling shows creates the risk of escape and the possibility that such wild animals might cause serious physical harm to the persons in attendance at any such traveling show. And whereas various animal rights organizations have investigated such wild and exotic animal shows and have found them to involve repeated instances of animal cruelty, inhumane treatment, abuse, and neglect beyond which this council finds tolerable for the treatment of any living creature. And whereas traveling circuses and other shows which employ wild or exotic animals promote training and transportation techniques that are not consistent with animal conservation and education and have been shown to pose specific risks to public safety and to the welfare of the public in regard to the containment and display of such wild and exotic animals. And whereas communities across the state of Ohio and throughout the country are examining the ethical questions surrounding the confinement and treatment of such wild and exotic animals by the aforesaid traveling shows and have either enacted or are debating the enactment of prohibitions similar to that contained herein. And whereas this council wishes to be proactive in the preservation of the health and safety of its citizens and any visitors who might attend any such traveling shows, as well as to not allow or encourage the abuse or mistreatment of any wild or exotic animals within its borders with its direct or tacit approval. And whereas this matter was considered by the Safety Council. So, looking at the legislation as well, the major update is in Section 812, Section 1 of the Codified Ordinances. No license shall be issued to any applicant for any circus, carnival, or menagerie that includes the display, the presentation, or use of any wild or exotic animals as defined herein, or in which wild or exotic animals are required to perform tricks, fight, or participate as accompaniments for the entertainment, amusement, or benefit of an audience. It shall be unlawful for any person to present, cause to be presented, or allow the presentation of any performance of any wild or exotic animal on any public or private property within the city. Wild and exotic animals are defined as any animal, wild by nature, predatory or not, as distinguished from the common domestic animals, included any non-domestic or hybrid creature, whether or not it was bred in captivity, including but not limited to elephants, lions, bears, tigers, or other such non-domesticated animals. I have the pleasure to introduce Mr. Harrison from the Outreach for Animals. Mr. Harrison is nationally renowned. He's presented before the Delaware City Council when they faced a similar issue in front of their likes. Mr. Harrison, please step to the podium, introduce yourself, and let's hear your presentation.
Some of this out first. First, I want to make sure I get you all brochures here too, so you all know who I am and hang on to it. And get some cards in here before we get started here. I'll let you just pass them around, pass to each other, and if you got any extras at the end there. I'll also leave the documentary they did about me, The Elephant in the Living Room, and it's mostly about Ohio. The exotic auctions here in Ohio, the dangers of police officers and firefighters that have to put up with the first ones on the scene when anything gets turned loose or escapes. So we'll leave that with you, and you'll actually get to see the auctions just over in Mount Hope, Ohio. They were the world's biggest for any big cat, and most of those big cats were from circus surplus. That's where they're selling tigers and bears and things that they couldn't use anymore at these auctions, which you'll see on here. I'll leave it with you guys here. Definitely watch the extras on there because you'll see a lot of that stuff. I appreciate Mr. Frazier having me come up. This is not all written stuff here, but I have some photos also because I wasn't going to do any videos. But I want to leave some papers with you here too that's very important. This is the city of Cleveland. We passed Cleveland, Dayton, Wilmington. I don't have Delaware's because we just did Delaware. And we have something that might shock you a bit. Everywhere I assume this is when I do all the emergency room doctors too. Might shock you a bit. When our documentary came out, The Elephant in the Living Room, 1 year before the Zanesville Massacre. If you want to look at the #1 film critic in the world from the Orlando Sentinel, what's it say there? The Elephant in the Living Room, the movie that predicted the Zanesville Massacre. We fought with the governor. We fought with him to try to get something done then. Why do we have to have something happen in our state that all over the world where I speak is the first thing people ask me about? The Zanesville Massacre. And it happened in our state. And you do understand the post-traumatic syndrome of some of the officers. You do understand that the county of Muskegon almost went bankrupt just from the media coming in. So if you have an animal that gets loose, such as this I caught in Dayton, Ohio, loose in the streets of Dayton, you have the media, see that's police officers, it's always the police that are first ones on the scene. It's not the zoo. We had to catch this by hand. I'll pass it around for y'all to take a look. This is the Zanesville Massacre. That's myself right there. I had to show up to respond. We were able to save 6. 49 were shot and killed, 38 big cats. Now, that's enough for us right now to say we don't need these animals in our community, period. Because if one gets out, it's an international incident. I'll pass that one down to you. But we also have situations where people have them in their homes also. There were 6 mountain lions in Lancaster, Ohio, in this woman's house we took out. I love the St. Bernard. He's so used to seeing it. I'll keep it quick here. This is what police officers are up against every day. People have these animals in there. This is on Harlem, downtown New York.
What's that got to do with the circus?
It's going to have a lot to do with the circus because guess what, ma'am? That cat was from the circus. It's a surplus animal from the circus. Sorry?
Ma'am, you will have a time to speak to the council, so address your comments here.
I'll just throw out, where do you think these animals come from if the zoo doesn't sell them? If who brings the animals into the country and who breeds these animals for entertainment purposes? This is a leopard in Indiana shot walking next to a swimming pool. We just throw this out for you. Then we'll come up, I'll introduce myself to make sure we got that. Also a black leopard killed by deputies, always the police. My organization are police officers, firefighters, paramedics, emergency room doctors, pediatric physicians, veterinarians, and animal control from all over the country. Because we're the ones that see the damage. The police are always the first ones on the scene. Now, you want to talk about circuses? That's what we're going to talk about now. Because, first of all, you can bring the circus, but don't bring any animal you have to hook with a hook or electroshock to get them to stay in the cage. One thing, too, this is my close encounter with Carson and Barnes. I've got all their, I'll pass these out to you and keep them. All the USDA violations, everything you can ever imagine, this Carson and Barnes. Why did Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus stop what they're doing? Because they realized it was inhumane, part of it. But for public safety aspect of it, they learned, these circuses, they do not have rifles, right? They do not have dart rifles. They don't have pistols. They don't have anything. If the animal gets out, guess is the law enforcement still here? guess who's going to have to take care of it? And it's happened across the country. It's going to be police officers. So when you sign to have the Carson and Barnes or some of the circuses come to your town, it's going to be up to your public safety department to take care of it. If it gets loose, they back off and say, tough luck. If you don't believe me, just check out the elephant in Honolulu. It got loose and destroyed everything. The cats have been out before. This is right straight from Carson and Barnes. This is their elephant trainers in Hope, Maine, of all places. Dr. Laurentis. This is what I wrote a letter to the Planning Commission. I spoke Skype to them to not bring circus elephants into their community, right? So what happens? The two guys from Carson and Barnes Circus, one is a veterinarian, his other brother runs the circus, they end up getting stomped to death by the elephants in Hope, Maine. And guess what the fire chief said? Because I'm a police officer, firefighter, paramedic, and I teach for Homeland Security at Texas A&M College for a disaster city. So I talked to all the chiefs, and all the police chiefs, all the firefighters, all the fire chiefs, all the mayors. This guy got stomped to death by his elephants that he had trained at Carson and Barnes. When he brought them into a smaller environment, elephants don't forget. And they made it sound like, oh, he fell down and the elephant stepped on him. Anybody ever been around elephants before? You know what I'm talking about? Africa, India, any place like that. Every place I've been with elephants, they know exactly where they put their feet. They don't mistakenly stomp on you 6 times. They know exactly where they put their feet. I'm leaving this with you also, too. And what's so sad in this is, residents Rosie and Opal are Asian elephants. They're in their 40s. Loretta, which is one of the guys from Carson and Barnes, worked with Rosie more than 30 years as an elephant handler for the Carson and Barnes Circus and had kept tabs on her since then. So he brought him into Hope, Maine, in the back of his veterinarian clinic area, built a structure for him for the circus elephants, and they stomped him to death, the guy that trained him. Most of you never heard about this, did you? What's really sad is this the local paper that had my pre-planning, when I told the Planning Commission, don't do it, don't bring the circuses, don't bring circus elephants to your town. They put it on the front page of their paper. Why did this expert know this? Why did that movie know that we're going to have the Zanesville disaster? Why did we know that when we filmed the movie? Nobody listened until it's too late. Let me pass this on to you. Hang on to these two. Now, one thing I want to say, let's lay this out here too. These are the Carson and Barnes violations here. I mean, they're just outrageous. I had to stop because I was running out of ink of all the USDA violations. Near misses, as they call them.
Do you have a count of how many?
I'll count them up. I'll definitely get a count for you.
Yeah.
This is from Born Free, also an organization that I don't belong to. I have a nonprofit organization of cops, firemen, and paramedics. We got together, try to stop the madness because we're always the first ones on the scene. This is a fact sheet with some more on them. As you can see, it's quite thick. And people always say, Tim, why are you worried about this? Well, first of all, as a police officer, I care for the animals too. I look at the situation and say, it's just not right for an animal to be shoved into a little cage, traveled around the area. They're time bombs ready to go off. There's no question about that. Take it from a person that's been dealing with them for 43 years, and you'll realize, wow, these animals, they're predators. Most of them, the big cats and the bears. And what does it say in a book when you open up a National Geographic book? The largest predatory cat in the world, tiger, right? The largest animal on the planet, the elephant. The bears, they're predatory animals. It doesn't say anything about circus tricks. It doesn't say anything about bringing them into your communities. But the one thing I want you to really think about here is, like the pediatric doctors told me, the zoonotic diseases, which you'll see on that documentary if you watch the extras, you'll see the filmmaker, as we worked with lions and tigers, and Dr. Paul Stahl, who was a retired deputy vet of the state of Ohio, who had to check all the animals that came in for circuses, actually quit doing it because he felt so bad about the animals. Dr. Paul Stahl was the one that saved the director's life when he caught an infection from African lions that were used for entertainment purposes. His skin started sloughing off, which you'll see on the extras on the film. It's really sad. He almost died. The Cleveland Clinic, the emergency room doctors, human doctors didn't have any idea how to figure it out. It had to be a veterinarian, a deputy vet from the state of Ohio that saved his life. Now think about the zoonotic problems. You've got monkeys here, you've got different people bringing them into your communities. I have never in my wildest dreams, as a paramedic, and I worked as a physician assistant before that for 6 years, how anybody in their wildest dreams will let their children walk right up to somebody with a monkey and not even know anything about that monkey. And that's what you get. You get your pictures taken with the tiger cubs, and that's what happened to Mike. He ended up with a bacterial infection from the African lion cubs. We have to pay attention to the zoonotics. That's what Dr. Paul Stahl wanted me to tell you. Does your officers, does your... Oh, I'm sorry. I took my notes over too. I'm sorry. Those are notes from a different...
He was going to read them off to you.
You can read them too if you want. This is notes from Las Vegas. We actually passed along Las Vegas. But think about it this way. Is your police department, is your county, is your city ready with a pre-plan if an elephant gets loose? Are they ready for it? Do they have the weaponry for it? I love what the police chief in Delaware said. He stood right up, right to the circus people and says, I have no weapon to take down an elephant. I have nothing. And then he asked the circus people, do you have anything? It's up to you. So why in the world would you bring it into your community? When it's up to you as your citizens and your public safety officers. I know as a police officer, my little 9mm or my .45 is not going to stop a tiger. Trust me, it didn't stop them in Zanesville. They had to get the SWAT team. And they still had to shoot tigers 16 times to drop them. So we have to start thinking about public safety and the financial. I wish your financial people would have stayed here. Because you get one cat. You want to know why I said the leopard loose? Just that incident there cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars. Just supplying the media with information. Getting all the yoo-hoos coming into your community and trying to tell you people how stupid you are. I had that happen to us in my community in Troy, Ohio. That's how I got started. I was a kid in high school. And I realized this is just not worth it. Roll the dice. Keep rolling the dice. But ask the communities that have problems. They're going to go, oh, heck no. We'll never do that again. We did it for all those years, but it only takes once. Also, is your health department here? Is your local health department ready to combat something? Let's say, we all remember monkeypox a few years ago. Do you remember the monkeypox serious situation happened in the early 2000s? That was all from prairie dogs that were passed on through primates. They were using it for pets. The monkeypox situation started so quickly and exploded so fast that 75 people got sick in one community. 75 people. 2 little girls went into comas and never walked again. And it's all because of the monkeypox virus. And that's something that even really good health departments are not going to be able to figure out at that time. I want you to think about also, too, do you really need to have your police officers, your fire department, you really think they need to have to worry about this kind of situation happening in your community? I don't think so, because you say, hey, Tim, it's okay to do these. It's okay to bring a tiger, a lion in your community. Everything's cool. I'm going to throw out a story from Texas. We had Hurricane Ike came through. I'm with the Texas Task Force 1, the biggest one in the world. We went down. Nobody could get on the Boulevard Peninsula. Nobody could get on there. What if you have a tornado come through when you had your circus in town? This hurricane came through. This African lion, can you find Waldo in the church? There was an African lion in the church, the only building that people could go into for the hurricane. There's dead bodies around the building, but this lion was inside the building. Nobody was getting in that building because there was an African lion. Well, she wasn't happy. And there was 2 tigers loose on the peninsula. So guess what? As rescuers, we had to wait till they were under control before we were allowed to even go on there to actually help people. So we got to start thinking reality, common sense. Why would you even want to take the chance of an animal? If you go to the circus, I want you to watch them in their cages. Do they look like they're happy? Because they're looking to escape at all times. They're looking to get free and get loose at all times. Now, also before I finish up here, I just want you to realize too, people say statistics. Now we have all the coroners in the tri-state area on our side now. Coroners have stepped up now. And you know why? When the bear killed the boy here up in Cleveland, right, a few years ago, partially ate him, the wrestling bear, part of the Circus Act, ate the boy, partially ate him, all right? Killed him. I want you to look what it says on the coroner's report. We'll pass it around. You all take a look at it. It's not one mention of a bear on there. How do you keep statistics on that? It goes down here. Let's say blunt trauma, cause of death, sharp force injuries to the body, soft tissue, vascular, skeleton, just accident at work. Accident at work. How do you keep track of that? That's why I'm telling you, when the USDA only has 200 people that does investigations across the country, that's all they have for inspectors. So they can't continually be here. And what I said in Delaware, and they loved it, was, why don't you use your own animal control people? If you feel you still want to have a circus in town, because they made an agreement. If we can have 2 felony violations, or 5, the circuses did, or 5 misdemeanors, we'll close it down, we'll get out of there. They know they can't, because the USDA inspector will never make any time. They're all the way in Indiana or Michigan somewhere, the one that's in this area. So they think they can get away with it. So what I've been doing across the country is I've been telling them this. I said, use your animal control. You'll get 5 the first night. You'll get 5 misdemeanor violations the very first night when they're beating them lions. So when somebody has to step around the trail and go, that's all you got to do. That's why all those videos on YouTube keep popping up now, because we have cell phones to do this with. Well, they're horribly treated. Someone pass this over to your people too. That's one. And then another gentleman who's to exhibit pythons, so you get your children's picture taken with them, Cincinnati. Do you see anything on here that says anything about python killing him? It says accident, doesn't it? So how in the world do you write down, python death in Cincinnati? You can't, because there's no way to keep the statistics. Because it doesn't work that way. And the coroners are saying that's not what we do. We put down accident at work. We don't put down what caused it. We just put down what the damage was. So here's another coroners from Cincinnati. So if we have any questions, because first of all, if you get a chance to watch the documentary, please push it, go rush it through. You don't have to watch the whole thing, but go to the auctions. Look at the surplus circus animals stacked on top of each other. You still got that leopard one, the black leopard? Hold that up, yeah. Hold that up when you watch the movie, when you watch the extra. Just remember this face, because this is one I took out from a circus. An extra. These 2 here, this panther right here. And watch when you watch or just get on the Outreach for Animals website and go to the undercover footage. That's easier for everybody to do. Outreach for Animals, they have panther cubs. Just right up the road, round up. Stacked on top of each other. Just 10 or 12 stacked on top of each other as fast as they can launch them all. Now you wonder why this guy had to kill this panther next to his kids at a swimming pool. So please understand, the reason I'm here, I don't get paid for any of this. We're a non-profit. We don't do nothing. We're police officers, firefighters, paramedics, like I said. And I love it that pediatric physicians stepped up. I love it the emergency room doctors. As you'll see in the documentary, Dr. Roger Paholka, 6 months in Africa, 6 months in the United States. He has no problems in Africa. He had 6 big cat attacks, 4 circus injuries from people holding tiger cubs scratched at Miami Valley Hospital right across the street at the fairgrounds. In 1 year, he had 4. He just loved to speak with. He spoke at the State House, and he spoke in Las Vegas. Let me tell you something, guys. It's real. It happens. And I would not want to put my community at risk for one thing, just to see an animal. Let me ask you, do you really think watching a tiger jump through a hoop is going to save the tigers in India? Because they say it's conservation. When you listen to them talk, it's all conservation, it's all conservation. No, it's conservation. It's a con. There's no tiger jumping through a hoop that's ever going to help an animal in India. So don't think since you're paying a ticket to go see that's what it's all for. Does anybody have any questions I can answer? Yes,
I have a couple. So when it comes to the cruelty to animals that we currently have on the books, I'm gonna read them off, and I want you to know if you think they apply to circuses, and specifically the Carson Barn Circus. Torture an animal, deprive it of unnecessary sustenance, unnecessarily or cruelly beat, needlessly mutilate or kill, or impound or confine an animal without sufficient quantity of good, wholesome food and water.
That's part of training. And if you don't believe me, just investigate. Like I always tell, don't believe a word I just told you guys. Investigate it yourselves. I just spoke at Clemson College. They do that as training. If you don't act properly, we're not going to feed you that night. We're going to put you in a small cage. And if you shake your head, you've probably never been to a circus, and you've never been to where people train these animals. It's horrible. In fact, the guy who used to be the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey circus elephant trainer works with us now. And he's one of the guys that really pushes this. Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
Once again, we're here to address the council.
Yeah,
we're not here to address the audience.
Watch the documentary. Sorry, ma'am.
The next one is impound or confine an animal without affording it during the confinement access to shelter from wind, rain, snow, or excessive direct sunlight if it can reasonably be expected that the animal would otherwise become sick or in some way suffer.
When they transport. We all know what happened in Kentucky just 2 months ago, right? There was 13 tigers in a semi-trailer. And guess what the circus said? We don't know where they came from. We just left him. Look it up, guys. Kentucky, on the interstate. It was only about 3 or 4 months ago. They were dropped in a semi. Just it broke down, and people just walked away from it. They couldn't figure out who to cite. Just like with the one boy who was scratched at the circus there in Dayton, Ohio. What they tried to do, the family tried to sue the circus. Well, the circus said, it ain't my tiger. It's owned by a group in Canada. Well, the Canadian guys, well, it ain't our tiger. It came from Europe. So you're going to have a hard time connecting the dots. Trust me on this.
Carry or convey an animal in a cruel or inhumane manner.
Yeah, just think of it this way. A tiger needs, 5 miles to be comfortable?
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, it does 5 miles as a circular pattern for them to walk. His whole life, a circus tiger's whole life on the traveling, was with a 20-foot by 20-foot cage. And if you look at the USDA, they said that's fine. 20-foot by 20-foot. Think about that. Tiger's about 10 foot long. Sometimes 12 with Siberian. He can't even turn around. But that's okay. That's okay to put them in. That's, to me, if I put you in a cage like that for a period of time, you can see why you watch TV now. Now people are catching it all the time, aren't they, at the circuses? Because the cell phones. It happens all the time. When a tiger attacks the guy, the trainer, or goes after somebody. And you want to know why? Because they're a time bomb. They're waiting for that opportunity to pay that individual back for smacking him, electroshocking him. And we all know what they do to elephants. That's just a fact.
Can you tell us what they do to the elephants?
Oh, they have a hook. They have a sharp hook they train with. They hook them behind the leg, which is soft tissue, or behind the ear, soft tissue. And all you have to do is when you go to the circus, is watch them. They'll still have a hook. I just closed one down in Pennsylvania because the guy wasn't allowed to be around elephants, and he was still there. They have a round one when they go get your picture taken at the circus or walk them around, and they'll go at the elephant. The elephant will go, and they'll hook them, and it moves the elephant along. They think it's that sharp one coming at them. So why would they even need that? So what we did in Delaware, and we did in Willowick, Ohio too. I told them up there, I said, I'll tell you what, you can bring your elephants, but don't bring your hooks. Guess what they said? Can't do it. Can't do it. We can't work with the elephants without the hook. Because it's something that they can control them with. If you have to physically abuse an animal to get it to jump through a hoop, because I know tigers in the wild don't do that. I spent time in Nepal with wild tigers. They don't jump through hoops. They don't do circus tricks. They don't blow bubbles. Ask Siegfried and Roy. Roy found out the hard way, didn't he? So let's listen for just a little bit and think, why would we put a wild animal through this? If you're a deer hunter like I am, or if you're somebody out there that goes out and likes the environment, that's why we had all these people, all these cops and firefighters want to change this, because we're the first ones on the scene when this stuff happens.
Keep animals other than cattle, poultry, fowl, swine, sheep, or goats in enclosure without wholesome exercise or chance of open air.
Yeah, the thing with the exercise is this. All you have to do, I'd love to have you guys, now that you're paying attention a little bit, look at a tiger videoed in the wild. And when they move, or a leopard. When they move, you'll see every muscle. Look at a tiger at the circus. They're atrophied. And what I mean by atrophied, there's just fur. You'll see muscle every once in a while, but it's not that sinewy, just like us. Well, just like us. If we would take somebody and stuff them in a 20-foot by 20-foot cage and travel majority of the time around the year with like that, and then expect you not to atrophy a little bit, you're crazy. Especially a large predatory animal like that.
Would you say, based on your experience and the legislation in 1729, what is the benefit by passing this?
First, the benefit is for the animal. Benefit is also to educate your public, because I think the majority of people right now are saying, we're tired of this. We're tired of you having to abuse an animal to entertain this kind of thing. Look at the orcas and SeaWorld, things like that. People are changing their minds now. And it's not just tree huggers or organizations like that. It's like our organization, which just says, hey, we're outdoorsmen. This is ridiculous. I've got a guy that big game hunts big cats, and he's fighting to close down circuses. Ed Kelso, who started the bomb squad at bomb school at the Quantico. He's big on stopping circuses. He says, I'm tired of seeing an animal in a cage. He said, it's just not fair. When you see a cat going across the mountain, and you look at it going across the field in the wild, you'll never want to see one in a cage again. But it also benefits you financially. That's what I wish you were here. If you talk to Sheriff Lutz from Licking County or Muskegon County down there, ask him if he wants a circus to come to his town after 38 big cats and 49 altogether, 49 killed, 56 loose. He doesn't want anything like that ever in his community again.
In your professional opinion, does the Carson Barn Circus abuse their animals?
Just ask, well, you can't ask him, he's dead. Ask Dr. Lorenta, who is the biggest supporter for the Carson and Barns. His brother owned part of it. He's stomped to death by elephants. I would say they're stepping up because Ringling Brother has stepped away. The big people have stepped away. Now the little ones are starting to pick up. And the sad part about the little ones, you think the animals were being cruel from the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey. They got more money. They were actually not treated as nearly as bad as these little circuses are. And besides that, think about it for a minute. If you have a tiger, and I can't push this hard enough, it's looking to escape, no matter what anybody tells you. And they just had a few just this year in different circuses around the world that escaped at the shows. So we need to stop thinking about, okay, well, this is history. We've been doing this for years. We also used to do a lot of things for years that weren't right. Now it's time for us to step up. If you want to see a tiger, you can bring your circus. I'm big for the circus. Just don't abuse animals. Just don't abuse the animals, and don't risk your city and your county in a potential lawsuit and have a situation where, let's just say, all it has to be is one elephant get loose, which happens quite a bit, and gets out, and all of a sudden now you have everybody from every country on the planet here in their media. If you just saw Zanesville the next morning, there was news media. It would be just covered the streets. It would be just covered. And it was unbelievable. And the sad part, even sadder part about that was they had to hire extra people to control that. They had to go to the outside of their community and bring people in to help control all the real circus that happened after that, because of all the people that came in. When they buried those animals on that property, which I asked them not to do, 6 people arrested the very next night for poaching because the animals are worth more dead than alive. And please, if you don't believe what I'm saying, just look at the auction. Where do you think black leopards come from? Where do you think the tigers come from? They come from circus surplus, and they'll even look it up. You'll say, what happens to, he just had 6 tiger cubs here last year, getting their picture taken. He's only got 4 tigers he works with the circus. What happened to those 6 tigers, cubs? Go to Mount Hope, Ohio. Not anymore, we closed them down. Go to Oklahoma, go to Mississippi, go down to Texas, where I just got laws passed in Texas. The whole state of Texas. We just passed it through the House. Because those are good old boys down there, and they're saying, we don't want this. This is crap. So I'm saying that financially wise, it's a wise decision to do. You can always have, that's why Circus Soleil and those kind of circuses are doing much better now. People are bringing those to the community. And, you don't have the animal abuse. You don't have the situation where you're going to be surprised how many children will actually tell you in school they don't want to go to the circus anymore. I'm amazed. I've been doing this for 43 years. I'm 61 years old. And I remember just 10 years ago where people wouldn't even let me come and speak. They would boo you out of a room if you would actually say, let's be nice to a tiger. Let's just treat him like a tiger. They would boo you out of a room. It's totally changed. People are evolving now to a point where they're more humane.
Do you think this law enables a proactive approach to the treatment of animals and a reduction of animal cruelty?
Yes, big time. And one of the things is, too, that you're going to be following what Delaware did, but you're actually stepping up across the country. I just came back from Portland, Oregon, a couple other places. They're thinking about it. You guys have already, Ohio is my state, and you all are talking about passing one, where they're just discussing it. And I'm thinking we're going to be way ahead of everybody. And I like that. I like that attitude, because we are the state that people look at because of the Zanesville situation. And please understand, I have never, as you can see when you read that from the film critic, the movie you're going to see, you're going to sit back, watch the movie trailer, The Elephant in the Living Room. You're going to go, that's the trailer for the Zanesville Massacre. 2 lions got loose on the interstate, attacked cars, Pike County, Ohio. Then at the end of the trailer, an animal had to be shot. So all between that, animals were loose. Just remember, state of Ohio, we passed big laws across our state to protect people and animals. And I'm liking, because each community makes it even better. Because they exempted circuses there for a while, and then people start talking about, well, wait a minute, I don't want a circus in my community either. I don't want tigers. I don't want a circus in my community. And I'll tell you right this, I don't want to be cruel, but I did this in Texas. I looked up, and the guys that were sitting there from the circus with their slick back hair, their attorneys, I said, please look at their tiger expert. And everybody turned and looked at him, and he is just this squirrely looking, I'm not exaggerating, and I'm saying, look at that guy. Ask him right now. Ask him. I wanted the mayor. Ask him, what's he going to do if a tiger gets loose? And he couldn't answer. So I wish they were there. I wish they were sitting there as I had them in Las Vegas and I had them in other places. I wish they were sitting there because it'd make more of an impact if you can ask them the question, what are you going to do if your elephant gets loose? Who's going to be in control of this? Aren't you the animal expert? No. Now you're supposed to take care of your community.
Other questions from members of council? Any questions from the audience for Mr. Harrison? Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Is there any other comments by members of the committee or members of the audience? So where we are is, all right, you can go first, you can go second. Go ahead.
My name's Sharon Salito, and I actually live in Licking County, and I'm sure the gentleman that preceded me's intentions are honorable, but just because he said something does not make it true. I was a Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey showgirl for 5 years. I lived on the train. I lived with the elephants. I rode the elephants. I helped raise tiger cubs. I helped groom camels. I never saw a bullhook that was sharpened the way he was talking about for the elephants. I never saw Cruelty. 5 years, 3 shows a day on Saturdays, 2 shows a day the rest of the time, 10 months a year out of 12. If there was a shortage of food, the owners, the ACT people would go without before they would ever have not given the extra food to the animals, to the elephants, to the llamas, to everything. I think this is all totally misguided. An elephant or a tiger, that's like a Mercedes. You don't park it, next to the salt water. You take the best care of it you can. It's your livelihood. It's their children's livelihood. Probably the grandparents, because it was families down through I never saw any animal mistreated. And in 146 years, to my knowledge, we never lost anybody out of the audience that was gored or ran over or killed during Ringling Brothers. I've seen the Carson Barn Circus. I've seen a lot of road circuses and enjoyed them. If it was if you were thinking of importing a circus from South America, perhaps. But this is the United States. They have a retirement thing for the animals in Oklahoma, Carson Barnes. Ringling Brothers has the Elephant Conservation Center, and they breed for cancer research elephants now. It isn't just some trashy business that should be hidden under a hat. I also was a volunteer for 10 years at the San Francisco Zoo and took care of animals, shoveled cages, everything, and their animals were not taken care of a lower level at all than the circus. Actually, the circus was taken care of better. And I'm wondering how the heck they're having the Brown Derby in Delaware County if if we're just supposed to stand around and hug animals. I like 4-legged creatures better than 2. But, and I wouldn't have had anything I couldn't have stayed, in the circus or around if I saw something that was or they were hiding or anything. I never saw it. And I think if Mr. Frey, you don't have to do it just because somebody else did it. It's like I don't even know what county it is, that sheriff that's not going to let his policeman carry the antidote for heroin because they want to do that. Are should you step in line and do that? Just because somebody else did it doesn't make it right. And I think Mr. Frazier should make up the difference for the Kiwanis loss. I was planning, when I read the first thing in the paper, to come to the meeting on the 17th and offer to pay the fee for the circus to come to town, but instead I couldn't believe they folded and were so afraid of everybody. I was trying to think if there was any... there's... if you care about animals, I know, and the only thing this is that this actually has something to do with your community. I know an army of middle-aged ladies that for 20 years have been catching feral cats and having them fixed and feeding them and at their own expense, and nobody ever did squat for them or cared or looked out their window, and here you are ready to, march to some drummer that just because he says it'll make a difference. I think it's better to give the circus performers places to play, kids appreciation for animals they don't see, and they do learn, and it does save lives. And if you're going to go down the other road, then I suggest you get Jack Hanna in here and talk about the zoo.
I agree with you. I do.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anyway.
Anything else?
No.
I do respect. Can I have respond one thing?
She's next, and then you can go.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening. Can we get your name
Absolutely.
and address?
Sure. My name is Corey Roscoe. I'm at P.O. Box 82494, Columbus, Ohio 43202. My name is Corey Roscoe. I'm the Ohio State Director for the Humane Society of the United States, the nation's largest and most effective animal protection organization. On behalf of our Ohio members, I'm here to strong support for Ordinance 1729 to prohibit the use of wild and exotic animals for purposes of amusement or entertainment in the city of Newark. With all that we know about the rich and complicated lives of elephants and tigers and other wild animals, it's clear that life in the circus or other traveling show is nothing but misery for them. They are denied everything that is natural and important to them, are trained with punishment and pain, bullied to perform unnatural and silly tricks, and endure extreme confinement for months of grueling travel each year. The bullhooks, electric prods, whips, muzzles, and other implements used to train and control them are clear evidence that the animals are not willing participants. Animal welfare concerns are well documented, and many, if not most, exhibitors with wild animal acts have been repeatedly cited for serious violations of the Federal Animal Welfare Act. Carson and Barnes Circus, which has appeared in Newark on numerous occasions, has a long history of abysmal animal care and multiple instances of animals running amok. A year ago, Carson and Barnes was assessed a penalty of $16,000 for multiple charges of failure to safely handle elephants, and its most recent elephant escape occurred just last month. The use of wild animals in circuses also poses a threat to the public safety, as we heard extensive testimony from Mr. Harrison. Animal handlers cannot protect themselves, let alone the general public, when a wild animal decides to rebel. Escaped tigers have roamed through performance arenas, frightened and injured circus goers, injured and killed their trainers in front of horrified spectators. Chaos has ensued when elephants have bolted across parking lots and downtown streets, crashing through arena doors and plate glass windows, and collided with traffic. In 2 instances, rampaging elephants were killed by police in a hailstorm of bullets, putting also the community in jeopardy. As we've also heard from Mr. Harrison, elephants can also pose a public health risk. Captive elephants' population is infected with tuberculosis, yet many captive elephants continue to be in close contact with the public. Putting children and adults at risk for this highly contagious disease. Increasingly, shows that use wild animals are no longer considered good old-fashioned family entertainment. To date, 2 states and more than 125 municipalities have passed legislation addressing this issue. Now, it might seem that the city of Newark is going on a limb, but sometimes you have to go on a limb to do the right thing. And I think what this community does in case of 1729 could be inspiring and motivating for other city council members who are sitting around in meetings just like this, who are scared to maybe be the first ones to do it. And I think your witness to the cruelty will help other communities also do the right thing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there any questions, Ms. Ford? Mr. Harrison, you want one more?
I just want to say, she said
You have to go up to the podium.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just going to leave you with just an investigative report on numerous different violations in the circus arena. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's probably more than the ones I use. There's so many of them.
And I'd be happy to, at any time going forward, provide you with more information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just wanted to reiterate that she said she was at the San Francisco Zoo. We all know what happened at San Francisco Zoo. It was 2 police officers that I actually trained were called there when a tiger jumped out of the cage, killed a boy, seriously injured 2, and 2 we had in our documentary. We had to pull it from the documentary. It was so intense. On the police officers' cameras, when they pulled in, and both officers trained at Disaster City, they pulled up and had to shoot the tigers with 45 that escaped and killed a boy there and seriously injured 2. But we talked about barns and cars in the barns. Nobody uses hooks or anything like that. I pulled up a little something. You not only have to watch it, you just have to listen.
Already sent it.
You already got it? Okay, you got it. Okay. But you know what I'm talking
The
about.
animal torture video from Tim Frisco.
Yeah.
And is he a member of Carson Barnes?
Yes, he is.
What is his role?
He's an elephant trainer, but some of them are not allowed. Some of the Frisco families not allowed to touch elephants anymore. That's how bad it's getting. So, yeah, I just want you to remember these animals, once they get out, and once they do get out, and just like Corey said over here, is that once they do get out, they will do damage somewhere. Like the elephants will just destroy cars. And then, the officers just don't have the weaponry for it. But I want you to realize it does happen. I do respect this lady here talking about the years she spent doing that. It was Jim Frisco, who's actually with us now. And Jim Frisco, as you know, is a well-known ex-elephant, one of the many Frisco brothers. And Jim actually says to us he never wants to see another. He can't stand the sound of hooking an elephant anymore. Can't stand the sound of it. So that's a trainer. You may have gone through all those years without seeing anything. That's fine. But I want you to understand it does happen, and you got the video, you saw it. I was going to play just listen to the elephant screaming, but we know it happens. It's not even a question anymore. But I want you to also know I'm more than happy to assist if you decide to keep the circus in your town, which I hope you don't.
It's already been canceled.
It's already been canceled. Okay, if it does happen, I can help you with a pre-plan. That's what I do in Texas. Get an instant action plan set up with the law enforcement and fire to protect your community, hopefully, and you're not going to want to spend that much money, trust me, on the new weapons and the things you're going to need to protect your community from these animals. Like I say, check with Chief Lutz from Muskegon County. Thank you.
Thank you. So what I've tried to show here is, in fact, the use of the circus violates existing laws that we have on the books related to animal cruelty. There's just a subsection in which these animals are not covered. And what this tries to do is rectify that situation, where we say, yes, in fact, any sort of exotic animal performance by a circus, carnival, menagerie involves some level of cruelty to animals, whether it's the scheduling, whether it's the transportation, whether it's the housing, whether it's the food or access to food, or whether it's the treatment. And what I hope is that this committee will pass this on to full council. And with that, I'll make a motion to adopt 1729. Is there a second? Hearing none, we will drop 1729 for lack of motion. And with that, we'll rest. Thank you.